Shalom everybody, my name is Sarah from Ancient Biblical Oils and Ancient Biblical Healing. There have been a number of people that have asked me along the way, what is my story and what is the meaning of Chayei. And after many years, I finally mustered up the courage to speak about my life and about my experience and my walk with the Creator, Adonai. And my story starts at the age of 17, where I met a man, or rather he pursued me. And being young and not really knowing anything, I fell into a snare of abuse, verbal abuse and manipulation. And many times tried to walk away from the friendship, and which had then at the age of around 19, 20 developed into a relationship. Understanding that it was not good for me, tried to walk away from the friendship. However, he would do crazy things like try to commit suicide and just the unheard of things. And out of fear and out of guilt, I eventually married this man, and we had 2 children. But as soon as we got married, the relationship turned not only from verbal abuse and emotional abuse and blackmail, it turned into physical abuse. And abuse is really an understatement. At some times, it would come close to an experience where I would be lucky to be alive. The hate and the anguish that he experienced towards me was supernatural, even though obviously I'm telling the story from my perspective, even though there was no apparent reason. But I tried many things, speaking to the family, going to counseling, looking for counsel from people to help, asking him to get counseling, and I felt that it was unsuccessful. And I then made a decision in my heart to say that I would allow this to happen 3 more times. And I counted the 3 more times, and on the last time it was very bad. I don't really remember the details, but I do remember being unconscious and waking up in my garden early hours of the morning, and then realizing what happened to me. And he was asleep in the house, and in that place, I left everything in the house, and I packed my 2 children into the pram, and I walked out of the house with nothing. Could only carry them and the nappies and things. Left my clothes, I left everything. The furniture, everything. And in the darkness, it was before sunrise, walked 10 kilometers to the nearest police station. And I just sat there. And at sunrise, I phoned my father and my mother, and I asked them to please pick me up. And they drove. It took them 4 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours to get to me, so I just sat there. And I never looked back. It was like the most courageous thing that I'd ever done. And I never made contact. I just immediately walked out, because I had that resolve. I just walked out systematically through the courts to get peace orders, to get restraining orders, to file for a divorce, all these things. Interestingly, once I got my divorce, when I was in the process, I think I had already got my divorce. I then went to church one day, and as I walked into the church, the elders or the ushers, or I don't know what they're called anymore, but quickly rushed to me and said, no, you're not, all divorced women have to sit on the back row of the church. And I was completely shell-shocked, and I looked, and I'd never noticed this before, but there on the back row were all these women sitting there. I didn't even sit down. I said to the usher of the church, and I said, if I've gone through a divorce, and that means that I'm not welcome here and I must sit at the back row of the church, then this is not God's church. And I walked out and I never went back. Obviously, at that point, I had been so indoctrinated that God was in the church. I didn't even understand that He was not in the church. He's everywhere. He's right in front of us all the time. He was right in front of me all the time, and he's been ordering my steps from as far back as I can remember as a child. Now I can recall each time that He was there. And I just went out into the world and began to live my life. 2 years later, after my divorce, I met Daniel. And at the age of 30, we got married. And we always had this simple prayer of, may you lead us in truth and spirit, and may no one be left behind. May you not leave anyone behind, as in with the two of us, because you're always in a situation where one person's on a journey to discover and uncover things, and the other person's always on the back foot. And in our case, that was Daniel. He was the one pursuing Elohim, pursuing reading the scriptures. Because of my experience with the church and with all sorts of other things, I would pray, and I had a relationship with Adonai, but I did not pursue it in the way that he did. I didn't. Even in our marriage, I went to church for a very, very short time because I was married and because he was going to church. But then I stopped going to church, and he would get up every Shabbat and go to church with the children. And I would stay at home and sing and read and do my own thing. But in our marriage, I was still captive to the man in my previous marriage, and to the trauma and to the abuse and the verbal abuse and the emotional abuse. I would be daily replaying conversations and muttering and murmuring to myself and replaying events and whole scenes of my life, of things that would have taken place in the abuse, and saying to myself, well, if you said that, maybe you wouldn't have said that. And if you did that, maybe you wouldn't have done that. Or if you cooked something different, maybe then that wouldn't have happened. And continuously meditating and trying to fix this problem inside of my soul and my spirit and my cells, even though in reality I was living in a very secure marriage. I was captive to my past and ensnared in my thoughts and in the trauma of my past. So one day I remember very clearly, I was laying in bed and I was reading the Torah portion, and the Torah portion was the captive woman. And as I read this Torah portion, I was filled with excitement and joy. I jumped out of the bed and I ran into the dining room where Daniel was sitting and studying and reading. And I said, the Torah portion is the captive woman, and I need to do this now. It was actually a Friday night, a Rev Shabbat. I said, I need to do it now. And he had obviously read the Torah portion because he reads it in the week. I normally get to read it on Friday or later on in the week. And he just said, okay. And he took his clippers, his shaving machine, and he began to shave my hair. I had very long hair to my waist, black, beautiful curly hair. And I have never experienced such freedom in my life. Every single piece and lock of hair that fell to the ground, I felt that all the abuse just being sucked out of me, all the words, all the memories, all the visuals, all the sounds. And I stood up from there and I was free. I could not recall, and still today, I cannot recall this man I cannot hear him, I cannot see him. I do not remember, as I'm speaking to you now, the details of, I cannot see any of it that happened to me. It just fell away. It fell to the ground and I was free. And at the same time when that happened, this man, he felt it in the spirit. He felt that he no longer had a hold on me. Previously, if he would pick up the phone and want to speak to the children, I would start shivering and crying, and the trauma, and he could at the drop of the hat say something and I would be in complete fear and torment, and that was removed instantly. To this day, I cannot recall his voice, I cannot recall what he looks like, and I cannot recall any conversation or scene or video, for lack of a better word, of my past. I know that if I see him in the street, I know what he looks like, because I had an opportunity not long after that to go for my final court hearing to get custody of the children or to sort out some stuff like that there. And with the court hearing, you have to both appear in court, and it was the first time that I appeared with him in court. Previously, time I had to go into court and get peace orders and all that there. I was completely, the courts were against me. I was completely afraid and a victim, and he was able to say whatever to the judges, call me an unfit mother for homeschooling, and he always managed to win the court cases and the things. But this time, I was able to sit in the room with this man and wait for 2 hours for this court case, and there was soundness in my mind and my body and my soul and my spirit, and there was nothing that he could say or do to harm me. And I was free. My marriage and our marriage flourished from there on. I was able to see Daniel. I was able to hear him. I was able to receive his love. I was able to receive his affirmations and his care for me, whereas previously I wasn't. Now, when you're reading that story of the captive woman, it's not it is a command because it's in Moses's writings, and it's a commandment being given to Israel as they are taking the land, which is the promised land. It's the land of the promised people. And in today's mind, it sounds like a very brutal scenario, but it's actually a picture of salvation. It is a picture of a righteous man, which is the Messiah, going out and killing unrighteous nations for establishing their own laws and their own rules and whatever. And inside of that, taking a spotless bride and bringing her into his home. And this is the cleansing process. Now we see lots of different scenarios around hair and shaving. For argument's sake, when the Levitical priesthood are going into service, there's a shaving. With the Nazarite vow, you cleansing by growing, or you growing out your iniquity, is how I see it, and you're not drinking any wine or grape juice or fruit of the vine. And you then, the cleansing process of letting go of this is then the shaving of the hair. So I'm not going to go deep into hair and what the significance of hair is, but this is definitely a principle that we see within the scriptures of salvation. If you find yourself captive and you're not able to get out of this situation, this is one of the options. So again, I personally, if I had read the scriptures, and I may have read it many times during the Torah portion, it would not have dropped in my spirit like it did that day. It's definitely something that if it is for you, you'll know that it's for you. It's not for everybody. The Spirit of Elohim will show you if it is for you. But it has been an integral part of my walk. It's been a catalyst for my faith and my marriage. And because of the extreme abuse that I went through, I was set free. So I pray for each and every one of you that Elohim may lead you all in truth and in spirit, that He may set the captives free, that He may restore us to fullness, that we may live within His kingdom in shalom with Him. Blessings for the rest of your day.